Trading Time with your host, John Rousseau.
My guest on Trading Time today is a longtime friend and professional, Dave Mai. He is a master videographer, audio technician, and adventure filmmaker. I'm really excited to share his story with you today, as he has added a lot of value to the community and the people that he works with. My conversation with Dave Mai. Dave, thank you very much for joining me today on Trading Time. You and I have known each other for a very long time. We've worked together for many years.
Yeah.
And I just want to honor you and your career today and give you an opportunity to tell people about the behind the scenes. We take a look at how important having a media presence is today to the success of people's businesses and ideas. And you are the person that stitches all of that together and builds these beautiful visual productions of scenery and artistry. Yet another job that most people don't even know exists, but like a hugely behind the scene thing, but ultra important.
Yeah.
We first met, I don't even know, 20 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. I think, was it at the Dream Cafe?
It was at Skaha Sound, actually.
Okay, oh yeah.
Back when Skaha Sound was, and I was in the process of building my business and changing the way I was working. And one of the jobs that I had was the audio tech at the Dream Cafe. And I said to the owner, I'm like, I'm getting too busy at work. I can't work these nights. I'm married, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, can you please help me find somebody competent to replace you? And I asked around, and somebody told me to go see Dave at Skaha Sound.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I was like, I don't want to say I was interviewing you, but I was like, I kind of was. And I was like, I take this job really seriously. They're looking for somebody who's serious about this. And you were like, okay, well, I mean, let's do it. And you've been doing that ever since. It's unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it's, the Dream Cafe is like the sound tech job in Penticton. It's like a world class 100 seat music venue. And it was really cool to be able to start my career in that place, like I'm very fortunate to start there. It could have been anything, but
yeah,
it was there. So it was great to be able to meet you and get that opportunity to work on my chops and make mistakes and learn from them and work with world-class artists, Like last year we had just about 200 shows.
Unbelievable.
I know, right?
200 shows out of a little venue like that.
Yeah. And we're getting Grammy nominees, Juno winners, just iconic musicians. And it's really cool working behind the scenes and getting to absorb some of that essence from all those musicians passing by.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like music is such an important factor in life and community and just philosophy, Mm-hmm. It's a powerful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And what an intimate venue.
Yeah. It's
to be as close to those performers, hey? To be feet away from them.
It's a listening room. So, you go to a bar and you watch a band and there's so much noise going around, plates and the bartender serving drinks. There's drunk, rowdy people in the corner, people playing pool. But this room everybody's so attentive, and every musician that comes through is this is really intimidating. Everybody's just locked onto you and so quiet and polite and and if you're noisy or chatting, people around you shh. There's actually cards on the table that explain that
Explain where you are.
Yeah.
This is where you are right now.
How we interact here at the Dream Cafe.
What a great concept, forged originally by a mutual friend of ours, friends of ours, Pierre and Deborah. Yeah, what an amazing legacy that business
Yeah.
has, and has been able to showcase that type of art locally. Like, to have that caliber of artists coming into a small town like that, it seems odd, seems rare.
It's very odd. Yeah. And yeah, every musician that comes by, they're like, "This is my favorite room to play."
I know.
It's crazy.
And again, because I remember when we were playing, and we would play like 30 shows in a season or whatever, and it is exactly as you described. You're playing in these venues that they could be playing canned music. It wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
There's drunk women from Alberta everywhere, and they're yelling and screaming on a sorority tour or whatever it is.
Frat dudes trying to fight over there.
Yeah. And you're like, I remember coming to the realization, you're just like, what am I doing this for? Like, nobody's listening to what I'm doing. And so to have the exact opposite experience as a professional artist in a room like that must be really, really nice.
It's rare.
Yeah, it is.
And it's becoming less and less too, especially with just after COVID, like a lot of the venues shut down. And
How did that affect you?
well, I wasn't there during that time. When you found me for that job, I was just the backup guy, and I was kind of just in the periphery of the Dream Cafe for a decade or so. And I went away and I started my own business, learned some different skills, went into the video world. And it wasn't until, 2023, their head tech left and recommended me again.
Yeah, great.
So I jumped at the opportunity. I'm like, yes, I'm in. So I've been the technical director there for the last year and a half. And it's been great. Yeah. Cool. I'm bringing the video world into it. We're doing like podcasts there now.
Yeah.
So we just did a podcast with Blue Moon Marquee, who just won Blues Album of the Year in 2023.
Wow.
We did Matt Anderson just last month.
What a great artist.
Dude, that guy's insane.
Matt, I remember doing sound for him, well, like I said, 20 years ago, and he was just unbelievable then.
Yeah, he did a 5-night stint there, and all of them sold out. We could have done more.
Unreal.
Yeah. We had like Grapes of Wrath, Ron Sexsmith last year. We got Alex Cuba coming this month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. It would be neat to be able to offer, because of your extensive videography career.
Yeah.
It would be neat to offer those artists that opportunity to film in there. Hey,
That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we interview the artists, and then we film and multi-track record their performance, and we kind of chop it up into
awesome.
a little insight on what it's like being them, and show some performance footage from the night.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I feel like I would never be able to work with artists like that in a small town like this, but somehow I am.
Yeah.
It's the world's getting smaller, it seems like, too, where you can connect with these big individuals and companies and just be anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you offer such a great product for them as well. That's a mutual feeling. Mm-hmm. I came to this small town, thought I was in Hickville. Next thing you know, I'm interfacing with this like world-class videographer, producer guy. He's videoing our performance. It looks unbelievable. Like we played, what was it, May Long Weekend 2016 at the cafe. Was that the first time that you filmed there, was for us?
Yes.
Yeah, and it looked unbelievable. It
Yeah.
looked like you were in Morocco or somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, it was just such a neat environment.
Yeah.
The angles that you were able to capture, the sound quality, it was world class, man.
Thanks, man. That was one of my first live video captures, was working with you.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me until you reached out to me that I could be doing that. So So thank you for that opportunity.
Well, and we did center stage before that too. We did
Right.
two
Yeah, yeah,
performances
yeah.
like within a 6-week period.
Yeah, you guys are well rehearsed, and everything just fell right into the pocket.
Yeah, yeah, you really offer such a great product, and I mean, I think you're kind of unparalleled in the area. Like, you don't have very many people that are offering this service.
Well, that's the thing about being like a big fish in a small pond. There's really no competition, right? And I've been doing it for so long. Like, unless someone like from out of town with a big name comes in and tries to take me over, I kind of got the South Okanagan in my pocket.
What an amazing opportunity.
I know.
And so we were just, before we started shooting today, you had a sample track of a couple of artists that we're close with and have known for many years. You were recording them at the Venables Theater down in Oliver. It sounded unbelievable. Tell me about this. What is...
Yes. Our good friend Ari Neufeld and Mandy Levant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been working with Ari for a long time, and we've worked together with Ari as well in my one of my home studios back in the day.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
2000.
I think that was
2009, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, 10 maybe? 9, 10.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, good memory. Yeah, you were playing bass on one of those songs, and you know, at that time I was trying to be a music producer in a small town with like limited artists to work with, and just learning the trade and just getting my reps in. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I think I need to move to a big city to be able to pursue this career in music production and stage production. But you know, I fell in love, started a family, and settled here in the Okanagan. I'm like, no, I gotta try to make a go here in the Okanagan.
Yeah.
So I expanded my skills, and you know, I went into video, photography. I tried haircutting for a while.
Because your parents are, that's their industry?
Yeah, my parents are self-employed hair salon owners, so that's where I kind of got the entrepreneurial spirit from.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Yeah, they immigrated from Vietnam. They escaped during the war and were refugees in Thailand for a while, and were sponsored to Canada. And I was raised in this immigrant lifestyle, you know, where they didn't speak English. I grew up being their translator, which is kind of a big job for a little guy, you know?
Wow.
So I had this like immense pressure of helping my parents interface with this new culture. But I watched them create this business and be self-employed, and like they're still doing it. So I never felt the need to get a job, because I knew like if they could do it, I could probably do it too. So it was a great example of entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
They escaped the war.
Yeah, it's crazy. My dad actually got caught the first time. They flee on like these fishing vessels. What? You know, they bring all their gold in them. They'll sew the gold into their hens because they're being chased by pirates at sea. You know, and they were actually chased by pirates, but they got away, luckily. And it's like, there's different ships that can have different capacity, but like all the ships are over capacity.
Yes.
And they're just chugging along in the open sea, trying to get away from the country. And yeah, some of the people that were pirated didn't have as much luck as my parents, but yeah. So I've always had this. It's a bit of immigrant guilt, you know? It's like...
What do you mean?
Like, my parents sacrificed so much to get here, and like, if I didn't make a good go of pursuing my passions and, you know, just doing the best I can, I feel guilty. Mm-hmm. So I have this like immense drive to like live the best life I can. Yeah. So that's
rich, man.
It is.
That's rich. That's yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. different walks of life, you know, different perspectives, and that's why I like media, because it's perception. You're when you're taking a photo, it's your perspective of how you see things. When I'm producing a song, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put my ideas through this artist as well, you know, and like you're interfacing with other people, you're building harmony with other individuals. And,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and that in itself will spark other overtones and add more color and mix color and spark new ideas.
I think an overtone is a very interesting thing to tell people about. Most people don't know what an overtone is.
Yeah.
An overtone, as I understand it, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a sound that doesn't exist on its own except for the sound that two other instruments or voices create. So for instance, in a piano or a guitar, is when I strum the guitar, the result of whatever that sound is an overtone, which isn't necessarily found in what it is that I'm chording, which is an interesting thing, that something could be more than the sum of its parts. And sound has a really amazing opportunity to be that, as well as you say, media. You know, it's like you're just showing a series of images. You're just sharing a series of words like you just did, but like that invokes an emotion, which can bring people to tears. That's an overtone. That's an emotional overtone.
Definitely, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Which is really interesting.
Well, it all starts in the mind, which is these ideas that, I don't know what's happening in here, but thoughts are waveforms, really. Everything is a waveform. When I'm talking, it's moving the air into your ears and shaking your cochlea and transferring it into electrical impulses in your brain, which you then perceive. Man, I can get into this.
Yeah.
Like on a quantum level too. You ever heard of the two slit experiment in quantum mechanics?
No.
Okay, so there's this they can send electron beams through this into this wall, and there's two slits in it. Well, actually, hold on. They first shine light through it, and the light shines through these two slits. And on the other side, there's this capturing device that captures what the light looks like. When the light comes through, it creates pretty much the other side of the slit is another light source now, you know?
Of course.
Yeah. And it creates this interference pattern as the light breaks up. But then you take that same slit, you put it horizontally, you put sand through it, and it just piles up in two piles. Right? It's a classical particle thing. So then you take electrons and you fire a bunch of them through these two slits, and it's an interference pattern. So electrons are pretty much just like subatomic particles, but they're acting like a wave, like a light wave on the other side. But then you put a camera here to sense what it's capturing. Then it acts like particles. There's two, it shows up as two slits.
So when it's being recorded, it does something different than...
Yeah. And they were sneaky. They're like, okay, let's pretend to unplug this camera. Let's do the test again.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, like, okay. They unplug the camera and they send electrons again, and it acts as a waveform again. Okay, let's just send one electron at a time with the camera off. Still shows up as a waveform on the other side with an interference pattern. And just the act of observing and consciously looking at that capture, it becomes a particle again. And I think that's what thought is, maybe.
Is that what music is as well? Like what you just described about the Dream Cafe is like, these artists could just be sitting in their room doing whatever it is they're doing from a performance or rehearsal perspective the minute they're in front of the camera, as you just described.
Or an audience or a viewer. You know, just the act of observing something.
changes the nature of what's happening.
Yeah.
And so you're proposing that that could be on a larger scale, like in the form of our bodies or an ensemble,
Yeah.
an observable occurrence as well.
Or architecture, you know, building is all math, right? It's just numbers, and
Yeah.
like Pythagoras was the big proponent to music and architecture. He was walking by a blacksmith one day, and the blacksmith was hammering away at the steel, and there's like different sounds of the anvil and the hammer hitting. He's like, oh. So he goes into the blacksmith and he observes, like, where's the sound coming from? And he's looking at the hammers. There's like a dense one, like a bigger one, and a small one, and they're making different tones. And like, oh, okay. So then he creates this idea around resonant frequency, where he starts studying the way sound interacts with its different mediums.
Yes.
And we're hammers too, you know. We all each make our different sounds and relationships into the physical world.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, you look at a string, like a guitar string, right? You pluck it, makes a sound. You cut it in half, you pluck it again. It's the same octave. It's the same note, but at a different octave. And that's just the waveform multiplying itself or dividing itself. Mm-hmm. And that's what light is too. Light is just waveform. Sound and light are the exact same thing at different octaves. You know, it probably goes into the infrared and the X-ray waves. You know, it's all just the same thing.
And think about how powerful light is.
Yeah.
Think about what UV can do. Like, we see it all the time when we're building something. It's like a lot of these materials have a rating. Like, this material can be exposed to UV for 3 weeks, and then you have to cover it up.
Yeah.
Or else you've done irreparable damage to it.
Yeah.
And so if what you've proposed is the case, then you think like, well, sound can be very powerful as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, you know, music therapy, sound therapy, stuff like that, which you can't deny that music is not emotional. So that's the overtone. Yeah, there's harmonics. If you're familiar with music, there's the circle of fifths, and then you lay the color wheel on it. It's the exact same thing. Like, the tritones are complementary colors. Like, you put the triangle over it and you just like shift it that way. It builds another chord. It's another major chord.
Yeah.
You know, it's symmetrical. Like the pentagram, you know, the star shape, where it intersects, you know, that's the exact same math. You can build the same length of line, just with different segments. That's the Fibonacci sequence. That's the golden rectangle. That's building principles.
Yeah.
That's basic truss and framing.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's all just math and numbers. All the great architecture around the world, the Pantheon, the Notre Dame, all are based off that. And paintings, you know, great paintings like the Mona Lisa have the exact ratios of the Fibonacci sequence, and it's you just start seeing it everywhere when you start to notice. And it's
common thread in all these different disciplines.
Yeah. Same but different.
I had a friend years ago that was so stuck on music. He couldn't not do music. And it was at the expense of his family, his job, a lot of different things. And I remember, I don't want to call it an intervention, because it wasn't, but it was just a suggestion, you know. And I said to him, like, hey man, like, you need to find something in the world that fulfills you in the same way that music does, as we've just described, but can help you economically surf through, you know what I mean? Surf through this commercial environment that we are inevitably stuck in, unless you're going to go squat on crown land somewhere, right? And I think that what you've proposed is that you could potentially be satiated the same way through the production of like architecture or design or audio technician work where you're stitching sounds together as you've just described. That could tickle that same part of your brain because it's all the same language as you've just alluded to. I wonder if that's, I mean, I certainly felt drawn to music as much as my friend did, but I was just like, I don't want to be poor my whole life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like a servant to the music.
That's why I'm not a professional musician.
You know what I mean though, right? Like, I don't want to be servant to the music. I want to enjoy music. I want to whatever, but like not at the expense of my family, my livelihood, all of that stuff. I think that that's really important. And maybe it's become easier to monetize music with platforms like YouTube and X. I don't know what that's done to the industry, but God, it seems like it would just be so difficult to monetize music.
It is. Yeah. Like I started in music production when it was going digital. I started in the analog realm, recording. I started just as hard drive recording came in.
Yeah.
And like the analog boards were going into digital boards. So I got to see this transition into this digital world. And I saw Napster, the pirating phase.
Yeah.
I saw Apple Music come up and Spotify pop up, destroying the whole economics of what was already there. You know, CDs, vinyl, cassettes, are all kind of gone now. I mean, they're still producing them, but they're not making that kind of money anymore because those mediums are kind of obsolete.
Yeah.
And musicians aren't really getting that much money through streams. So they're relying on live performances, merchandise, and a record label's not going to even look at them if they don't have a certain amount of followers on social media.
Right.
So it's become this look at me game, and not even about the music, really. It's how many eyes and attention you can retain. Maybe that's a bit of a jaded view. But
No, I think it's pretty accurate, Dave.
yeah, and
that's not to say that there's anything wrong with pop art.
yes,
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
nothing wrong with that.
the world has had pop art forever.
Exactly.
But insofar as like great master class pieces of music or art,
Yeah.
it's definitely become this sort of like odd commoditized thing now. To me, it's what it seems like.
And that kind of gets back to what you were talking about your friend there. You know, there's music, and then there's like the business of music, which is like a totally different thing.
That's right.
And what I'm getting at is nothing's going to stay the same forever. And I feel like we're at a pivot point where this model can't last. And I'm trying to envision what the future might look like. So I'm trying to start a record label right now. I'm not sure if that's a foolish thing to do or not. And I want to get into music publishing. I'm just trying to expand what I'm already doing because right now I'm limited by my time and like how many gigs I can get. I'm looking for something where I can scale off of what I'm doing already without having to put more work in. So I feel like there's going to be a revolution in music that's going to change the industry again.
How does that change? How does such a huge machine pivot like the music industry?
It needs a disruptor, just like how the digital age disrupted what was happening before. I'm not sure what that looks like yet. Maybe something with blockchain or, I don't know, just cutting the middleman out perhaps.
I want to get back to the waveform thing, how
Okay.
it ties into what we were just talking about, because during the holidays, my wife was describing an experience that she had whereby she went over to somebody's house and all of their kids chimed in and started in unison singing this Christmas carol together. And it reminded her very much of her childhood, growing up with three sisters all singing together. And music used to be, you used to have to be somewhere. And when you were there, you were in an environment like this cathedral we're in right now, whereby it sounds a little different in here. There's reverberation that's unique. There's decay and delay and sound transmission and travel. If you play a guitar in that corner right there, you have this improved bass response in this room, which really fills your ear and gut up with sound. It's very unique. And you take a look at the architectural development in Europe and other buildings, like the ones you work in, where the acoustics are unique. We tried to capture that many years ago in these like recording spools and then vinyl or this tape technology that was transitioning that you described as you were coming into the industry. They were getting rid of this 2-inch analog tape, replacing everything with digital. But when you take a look at how the old school mediums used to capture those waveforms that you're describing, they have a continuous bandwidth. And as soon as we converted everything over to digital, and you can see it on the old compact discs, it'll say AAD. So it went from analog in the studio to analog in the mastery department where they mastered it, and then it went to digital. And as soon as it goes to digital, there is a compression of the waveform that happens. And you don't get what I just described happening in this corner,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And even further still, you think about everything that's lost in music from a digital perspective nowadays, and how they've taken that compact disc and now we made an MP3 out of it, or just this digital file. Like, what are we missing? Like, it seems so perverted. You know how it started? Like something so honest and like 3 children singing together, a beautiful song at Christmas time, to capturing that so that we can replicate it, so that the kids don't have to be there when we want to listen to it, to this digital form, to this, like, it's so perverted, it seems like. How do we come back from that perversion to something more wholesome and actually essential?
Yeah. Well, it comes back to the live performance. Like you're saying, you know, like cathedrals and churches have this majestic feel in them. They got the tall ceilings, and that's why there's hymns and religious songs, because and you know, Buddhist chants. There's always been this powerful connection to sound, and they've always known that when you gather a bunch of people together to create this beautiful sound, it's different than a recording. And that's where you can shape minds, shape perceptions, shape beliefs. And yeah, shape the way people spend money now.
Yeah.
It's what you're saying about that bandwidth is totally true. You're not getting those overtones when you're listening to recording. You're not hearing that corner of that room. It's the same experience for everybody listening through those headphones, right, or the speakers, or through your tinny phone.
A homogenized version of.
Yeah, you know what makes me really tick is I have to check my mixes on my phone, which is like the worst sound source because it's the most common thing people are listening through.
Oh, interesting.
So I have to like
right.
further
Right.
insert that factor into my process to
So does that go back to that the medium is the message thing? You know, that whole like whatever people are listening to this through,
Yeah.
we need to model the message around the medium.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Well, music's starting to, there's surround sound, there's Dolby audio now, and like it's very immersive now. The trend is to mix for that now in modern production. You go to a movie theater, there's speakers here, there, you're hearing the plane zoom across. So you're like, there's room for improvement. And it is what it is, and
Yeah.
I'm just rolling with the punches, and it's gonna change again. So I'm keeping my finger on the pulse and seeing what's happening and trying to, I wouldn't say predict the future, but anticipate it and try to go in that direction.
Go to where the puck is going to be.
Yeah.
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 The Venables Theater, I want to go back to that. We kind of broke off on a scientific tangent there, but we were listening to a recording that you're producing right now where you are capturing, similar to the Dream Cafe artists, in these live spaces that we have access to. Tell me about the Venables Theater and the work you do there.
Yeah. So I guess I would say I'm the principal technician there. I've been there for 10 years since they
Amazing.
made that building.
Wow.
The old Venables Theater burnt down, which I did a couple jobs there before, and it was like this concrete box with a concrete stage. It wasn't pretty. But after it burned down, they built this beautiful multi-million-dollar purpose-built theater with like hundreds of lighting fixtures and state-of-the-art sound system.
Wow.
It's beautiful. And again, I'm like, how did I get in this position in this small town? Like Oliver's, 6,000 people? It's just so fortunate that this little town has this beautiful theater. It's definitely the gem of the South Okanagan, performance venue-wise.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it got me thinking. I'm trying to start another recording studio because I've moved houses. I bought this house that wasn't really conducive to building a recording studio. I'm like, I miss doing this. But I don't have the capital to put up a new studio just quite yet. So I'm like, how can I utilize these spaces that are sitting empty half the time? The first idea was vacation rentals. I'm like, wait, I can just go like Airbnb, and these houses that aren't occupied, I can just rent out for like a week and do a pop-up recording studio.
Yes.
Like, to find a nice visually pleasing place and rent it out. And like, wait a minute, I have access to one. So they graciously let me come in and do this pilot project I'm calling Pop-Up Productions, where I built this beautiful high-end mobile recording rig. Very nice analog gear.
Analog gear?
Yes. But I'm recording to digital, but...
Wow, cool.
With that purpose in mind, to bring it into these beautiful spaces, bring all my cameras, my lighting, and just capture musicians and artists and try to, I don't know, just try to capturing those overtones,
Yes.
It's just something about, I like media because it's a universal thing that everybody indulges in. And I've seen a lot of amazing things, and I just want to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
And these artists need to be seen, they need to be heard. And I think that's what drives me to want to do this, because I want to share it with everybody and show how amazing people are, and kind of use my media business to share that and bring it to the world. It's like when I started as an audio engineer, I was getting out of high school and I had the opportunity to go to college, and it was either going to be photography, graphic design, filmmaking or audio engineering. And I was in a rock band at the time, like, yeah, music, let's go music. But like when I went to that college, I got to interface with the filmmakers and the graphic designers. So in a way, I got that education as well, which was really cool. And now it's kind of all come together.
Yeah.
I felt like I was kind of like all over the place when I first started this, but it's starting to make sense why I was doing that now. Now I can bring it all together and create my true vision.
We haven't talked about any of the adventure documentary filmmaking that you've done, which is to say everything, like you are truly a multidisciplinary person. Like I can remember interviewing you a few years ago when you released that ice climbing video. And forgive me that I've forgotten the name of it.
Higher Perspective.
And that was sponsored by
By Tell a Story Hive.
by Tell a Story Hive. Wonderful.
Tell a Story Hive.
Thank you very much, Talis. And in partnership with like a bunch of other really high profile companies.
Yeah, Mammut.
Yeah. And so like I'm like watching this reel of you're standing on top of this rock face in the middle of winter, ropes and all sorts of stuff all over the place. And all of a sudden, this massive piece of ice, like bigger than this vestibule we're sitting in, just caves off of the side of the mountain. And like you were just getting ready to climb it. And
I just got off of it.
You'd just gotten off. Even better. Even better. I'm like, and I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, like, Dave, what is this? What is this?
Yeah, I got into rock climbing and I really enjoy it. Just the grounding of the earth, you know, you're touching rock and earth and you're feeling the earth's magnetic pulse through your body. And it's a great way to connect with nature again and to get some exercise at the same time. And again, I just wanted to share that with people, right? So I started bringing a camera with me. And when you're at the top of a mountain shooting down on a climber, just that expansive view and the height and the climber in the foreground was just something so appealing to me. And that's, I kind of got obsessed with climbing photography and filmmaking. And, you know, I was kind of sick of making real estate films, and which I still do. It's a great business, but I wanted to use this art form for something else, a little more personal, you know, satiate that creative urge. So I started doing that, and not a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a bit of attention, and I got better at it, and had the opportunity to make that film. That film was about climbing photographers, so Higher Perspective. So I was able to travel to Squamish to film my friend Alex Ratson, who's a photographer there. We hired helicopters to take us at the top of Mount Hayrick, and that was a really cool experience in itself. And I went to Canmore to film my friend Tim Boundfield, who's a pretty prominent ice climbing photographer. And I was pretty new at ice climbing at that time. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna use this opportunity to hone in on my ice climbing skills and my photography and filmmaking.
Just do it all at once.
Yeah, let's do it all at once. So it was kind of like a really cool opportunity to learn all those skills and do some really hard things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's a lot to know to be able to climb something and safely rig yourself to a chunk of ice, and then to pull out your camera to get the right exposure and capturing that image at the right time. Right. You know, you're getting up before the sun's even up because you gotta be at the ice as the sun's coming up, if not starting in the dark, because like later in the day it becomes unstable.
Right.
So yeah, it's just I thrive on doing hard things. because I come back to like my normal life of, mixing sound for a room
Right.
of 1,000. I'm like,
It's safe.
it's whatever.
It's safe. It's
Yeah,
predictable.
yeah.
You've done it 1,000 times. You know the room. You know the clients.
Yeah. So, doing hard things is really humbling and it builds character. So, yeah, the obstacle is the way.
The obstacle is the way.
I think that's a Ryan Holiday quote.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I can see that those frames in my head right now, thinking that you just got off of that piece of ice and it like plummets down the cliff face.
Yeah, that was kind of a dumb decision to climb it in hindsight. Mind you, we mitigated the risk because we're like, okay, let's anchor our rope on this side in case it falls over. So we were anticipating it falling over.
Yeah.
Well, we were hoping it wouldn't,
Yes.
but we were top roping it, which is a safer way of climbing it. So like if something weird happened, we just jump off and swing
Get
out
off
the way.
of it
Yeah.
and you're out of the way. Yeah.
And that's what really kept us safe.
Wow.
Was the forethought of that. Yeah.
Just to capture that footage of that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like I don't, maybe you follow other Instagram feeds that have that type of like material showcased on it. I don't. I've never seen a clip like that before. It was unbelievable.
No, it's a pretty rare capture. Yeah. Well, the thing is, that was an Okanagan ice pillar. It's called the Cannery Column. It's just on Green Mountain there, just below Apex. And the Okanagan is the worst place to ice climb.
Oh, it's so freeze thaw here. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and like there's maybe 1 week of climbable ice if you're lucky.
Right.
And
You need it to be like this for like what, 4 weeks, and then we need that Arctic front to come down
Yeah.
and freeze up.
yeah, and then you got to bushwhack for miles to get to it, which is a thing on its own, which is probably harder than climbing it, to be
Yes, that's
honest.
right. The expedition.
Yeah, the navigating and getting lost in the trees and
Right.
yeah, sliding down scree slopes.
Yeah. But Dave, on top of everything we just discussed, your most recent adventure documentary that you released was even more bizarre than that. You're filming these guys, and I forget the name of this
This one's
particular
called Speed Flyer,
Speed Flyer.
also a Tellus Story Hive production.
Thank you, Tell a
you,
Story
Tellus.
Hive. What are these guys doing now?
Oh yeah, Speed Flyer. My friend Sean Dillon, he was our mutual friend Chris Bouchard was like, Sean, you need to meet Dave. Dave, you need to meet Sean. And like I randomly ran into him at Canadian Tire buying fishing lures. I'm like, dude, let's go fishing. Like our mutual friend says we should hang out. So like we're out fishing, we're chatting, and we devised this idea of creating this film Speed Flyer. So what speed flying is it's a multidisciplinary I can't say that word.
Disciplinary.
Disciplinary, thank you.
Yeah.
Sport where there's speed flying and speed riding. They both use wings, the
Yes.
same wing.
Okay.
It's like a modified parachute paraglider. It's like a small paraglider, a little boxier than a paraglider.
And more maneuverable.
Yeah, it doesn't go up, it goes down. So you're like proximity flying through the mountain, dodging trees. You're kicking the sagebrush as you're going down the mountain kind of deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
What speeds are these things reaching? Like, have they
They're
clocked these?
fast, yeah. I don't know the numbers, but they're fast.
It's not like a squirrel suit as fast as one of those things.
Not
but,
as fast
But you're
as that.
going faster than parachuting, and you're close to the ground.
Yeah. And what speed riding is, they do it with skis on. So I was lucky enough to have use of the original footage of the guys that pioneered the sport back in Europe, in France, Francois Bon. So they're like flying the Eiger with these skis and wings.
Wow.
It was crazy. So I'm like, okay, yeah, these guys are doing it in the Okanagan now. And Sean's like one of the pioneers in Canada. He started in Squamish, jumping off the Chief with the speed wing. Like no one was doing it at that time. So he's like trying to figure it out himself here in Western Canada.
So you just like run with this thing like you would a paraglider.
Yeah.
You run, you get it up off the ground behind you, and you just...
You launch. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, Sean started a community down in the wet coast. And unfortunately, some of the earlier guys, there's some loss of lives of just because there's no proper training.
Yeah.
And it's risky. It's inherently risky. So
No guarantees when you're a pioneer.
yeah. But this film was about Sean pioneering the sport and making it safer for the next generation. In paragliding, hang gliding, there's HPAC, Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, where they rate pilots because you're in airspace. You gotta be able to communicate. You gotta know winds, aerodynamics, the principles of flight.
Yep.
So now he was able to incorporate him and some other people were able to incorporate it into HPAC. So now it's regulated. There's proper training, and
Cool.
Yeah, more people were doing it. So it's great.
And
That's the story of that.
again, another amazing local story that you would just never imagine would be happening. And when I watched the video, one of these exposures that they use quite a bit is just in Headley.
Yeah.
It's just right down the street.
Yeah, man.
It's just over this mountain. And there's just this incredible, well, it's like essentially the base of Nickel Plate Mine.
Yep.
And then down into the valley. It's unbelievable. You caught some amazing footage of that. Did you ride one of these yourself?
Not solo. I was tandem riding.
Yeah. How was it?
I got to do it twice.
Did you?
Yeah. It was terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. The first time I did it with, we ski toured up to a top of a mountain, and I'm strapped to Sean's chest. I'm not a skier. Let's get this thing first. I'm not a skier, so I'm a horrible skier strapped to his chest. On our first attempt, I had split board on, which is like a snowboard that splits in half.
Yeah.
And my binding lock breaks, so like I'm tilting forward. I face plant into the snow. Sean's riding me like a horse towards this cliff. So I'm like, I think I'm done. I'm out. Sean's like, no, we're doing this. The sun's about to set. Like we got like a bit of light left. Let's do it. I'm like, okay,
Wow.
let's do it. And it was so amazing.
Wow.
I'm glad he convinced me to do it. And then we flew down, did some turns, and landed on the lake, the frozen lake.
Landed on a frozen lake?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and like
Cool.
when they're riding solo, the tandem wing is a bit bigger, so it's a bit slower.
Yep.
But when they're riding solo with their smaller wings, like they're doing barrel loops as they're like swooping and like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty
I don't know
insane.
how those guys don't puke. I'd puke if I was in one of those things. I'm watching this clip. I'm like, oh, no, I'm out. The washing machine.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah, I did a tandem paraglide once, and I was very nauseous.
Really?
Yeah, because you're not the pilot.
Yes.
You know, when you're driving, you don't get car sick.
Yes.
In your back seat. Same idea. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, good times.
What an amazing opportunity you've had in this career locally.
Yeah.
I love everything you do, man.
Thanks.
You got a great you have a great portfolio. You really do. What else? What do you want to tell me about? What do you want to talk about? What's important?
Oh, family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, it all comes back to just creating this beautiful life that we're able to live. And, coming from an immigrant family where I saw the opportunities they didn't have, just makes me want to do things like this. Chuck myself off cliffs and
Yeah.
get crushed by huge icicles.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just I'm just trying to find a way of living that I can be proud of and enjoy, because it's going to be over before I know it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very much a bubble within a bubble living in the Okanagan, isn't it?
Yeah.
The opportunities that we have, the technology we get to work with.
Just in the Western world in general.
Yeah, that's right.
We're so spoiled here. And there's no, I mean, like, of course they're aware of what's going on around the world, but they've never experienced it, or like some of the natives, the native born people here, the Canadians, I guess.
Yes.
I'm not saying I have a better perspective than they live a wonderful life. You know, like, you go to the grocery store, there's food, and it just comes back to being grateful for what you have, and you know, making meaningful connections with people, creating harmony with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my friends grew up in a communist country, similar to, and you know, he said having to wait in line for an orange, a single orange at Christmas time, like, we have no concept of that here. We have no concept of scarcity. So to see you, as you've described, making the most of these opportunities that you've been given in the face of refugee parents and all of those things, it's awesome to see, Dave. You've built a beautiful business.
Thanks, man.
I really appreciate working with you over the years and the work that you've done for my business and art. And it's really nice to have a catalog of high quality work that's been produced by you, because, you know, when you think about it, like, we spend, and I've said this for years, it's like, you spend so many hours building something or an idea or writing a piece of music or whatever, right? You practicing and all these things, and you're like, all of that equates to, like, sometimes a single photograph, you know, or like a 2-minute video, like the one you built for us for this property, though, of all that drone footage and interior footage and stuff. And you just think it's like, that's really important to have a catalog of that. So to have a professional like you that takes things so seriously and is coming from that human perspective is really valuable. You add a ton of value to people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I try to do. And it's a great honor to work with you too, because I see what you're doing and your artistry and commitment and personality. It's so great to work with. I've watched you grow too, from when we first met.
Yeah.
You know, from your building your first house to, like, all this beautiful furniture you're making to this place that we're in right now that you're looking to sell as well.
Yeah.
You know, once you sell it, it's gone. It's I mean, it's still there physically, but
Yeah.
you don't have access to it. You know, you're not using that table you built. Mm-hmm. It's you don't really see it anymore. So I see the importance of that.
It is. It's super important.
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah. So I try to align myself with people that see the value in that. Because really, I could just be photographing whatever, you know, but yeah, when you focus on it with just like the slit experiment, you know, just observe it and then capture it. There's something very powerful in that.
That's a great place to leave it, Dave.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
coming on and telling us your story today, man.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.